All right, hi everybody. David Fogel back with you, CEO of the Symphonina Foundation, back with another Symphonina Foundation podcast. I'm joined by our special guest today, composer and educator, Mattia Chiappa. Mattia, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing okay too, thank you. And we find you in London, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm in London right now. I wish I was somewhere else actually, because it's quite hot.
Okay. I was just speaking with composer Brian Ballinger. I'm doing a little work for Symphonina that he wrote, and it was a finalist with distinction in our contest this last year. And I'm doing some of the mixing for him, and he's in Spain, and he said he's escaping the Spanish hot to go somewhere closer to you, I think. So I don't know if he's escaping then. Maybe he's not escaping.
Yeah, this summer has been dreadful, really. I don't know what's going on in Europe in general, because like my parents are in Italy right now, and it's unbearable. You know, we had like 4 heat waves. It's just like I don't know what's happening.
Goodness.
But hopefully it's gonna finish sometime
Well,
soon.
I regret that I didn't have the time to look you up when I was in London earlier in the year. I was there in April with Ed Basil's project, Reverie, and we were recording with the London Philharmonic at Abbey Road, which is its own story and its own great story. But next time I'm in London, I'll have to try to find the time to get together. When did you move to London from Italy?
It was a while back. It was, I think, 12, 13 years ago, something like that. I moved to London to study music. I'm a guitarist, and I won a scholarship to study guitar music performance, and basically, yeah, I decided to stick around after the end of the degree.
Yeah, so let's start with that then. So guitar was your first instrument, your main instrument,
Yeah.
actually, right? When did you start? When you were very young, or did you pick up an acoustic
Yeah, I
guitar
think I
first, or electric?
started. Yeah, electric guitar. Yeah, I
Okay.
think I started when I was about 10 years old.
Okay.
It was a bit of like a happy accident, really. I just liked music, you know, and we happened to have a guitar at home, so that's how I got started. It could have been anything, really. But yeah, like, you know, my parents signed me up for a few guitar lessons, and it became serious, and I decided to pursue music in my 20s or something like that.
You know, Matt, I think you're speaking very self-deferentially there, but I'm going to say something like, I suspect if your parents had been clarinet players and you'd picked up the clarinet, you'd be an awesome clarinet player. And if they were a piano player, you know, we would have been great at the you have the musical gene, whatever that, or collection of them. So they happen to be a guitar, maybe, but I suspect you would have been great at anything.
Well, that's very kind. I should say it wasn't always easy. You know, I did struggle quite a bit in my early years. And I still feel like music doesn't really come easily to me, you know. Whenever I'm writing something, you know, because like when you're active online, people tend to see the best of whatever you do. But
Right.
when you're by yourself, you know who you are. You know
That's
what I mean?
correct. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. So everybody who has ever searched for anything about orchestration online on YouTube, at some point, if they're serious, they've come across your work. And I came across your work probably right around 2020, probably about 6 years ago, right when you were starting a 100 variation series of a pretty simple melody that you came up with. And I was like, okay, I was probably about 4 years into orchestral composing at that point. I played piano since I was 5, so you know I'm 62 now. It's a long road of music for me, but didn't get into orchestral writing until about 10 years ago. But when I came across your stuff, I have to say, you know, everybody has something important to contribute. I feel like in the online education field, and I've had the pleasure of talking with Ryan Leach and Zach Heidi and Chris Siu and a number of other people, and I appreciate all of them. And I appreciate you. I don't want to say more or less, whatever. That would be unfair to everybody else. But what you were able to accomplish, actually, even in just that series of 100 illustrations of orchestration of different ideas for one melody, was truly brilliant. It's really brilliant.
Thank you. I mean, it started as an exercise for myself, really. So the first 20 or so were pretty easy. But then, people started to ask for more. So you have to get inventive and just listen to a lot of music, references, study, scores, and try to fit it to whatever it is that you're doing. So yeah, it was definitely like a fun experiment.
I think,
particularly the beginning.
Yeah, particularly the beginning. Okay, so let me ask about the end then. So, well, let me ask one other thing too along the way. So, along the way there, you have one where you try like the Middle Eastern thing, which is maybe not really truly Middle Eastern, but the way it's characterized in Hollywood pictures, and then like Westerns, and like I'm like, God, so imaginative, and it's just great. So again, it just shows that you can take really almost any melody and
For sure.
and craft it into a different style. You just have to be able to do the study that you've done and encourage other people to do that study to understand what are the motifs and what is the background framework that is required to fit it into that concept.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I think my process at the time would have been just trying to get the essence of whatever it was that I was trying to do. Like, for example, if I was gonna do something that had a more Middle Eastern kind of sound, I would try to get the essence of it first of all, like melodically and harmonically, because obviously, yeah, of course, like I did use the same melody for all of the examples, but by the end of it, the melody would have been changed a little bit to adapted, not changed, just to fit the material you're going for. So I would do that, try to get the essence melodically and harmonically, and then try to fit the orchestration to it as well. And generally speaking, the orchestration is usually easier because there's only there aren't that many combinations of instruments that work, so a lot of the orchestrations I did tend to sound quite similar, I think, which is quite strange because the series is about orchestration, but what makes the examples really unique from one from the other, I think, is probably the harmony and the melody, the embellishments.
For sure, but also, as you're saying, like if you're adapting a different scale, like I remember some of them there, you might have used a half whole scale or some other, or just you invent one, whatever, then you're going to change the melody to be within that scale, and that's fine. But I think as someone who was thinking about, okay, how can I use these concepts for, let's say, scoring a film, it's totally fine to change the melody even a little bit. You'll still bring out the remembrance or the imprint of that previous melody that you've imprinted on them already, and it's better even that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, the whole idea behind it was to just find some presets, really, of presets, combinations of instruments or whatever it is that people liked about a certain example,
Yes.
And just to be able to reuse them eventually.
And I think
certain combinations.
Go ahead.
Because certain combinations, they can be, they're pretty flexible, they're pretty versatile, like, I don't know, like cellos and bassoons playing in unison or something like that. It's something I might have done like 80 times within those 100 examples, so there's some common ground between all of them, and it's
map techniques too that you brought out there. I think it's not just the instrument combinations that you brought, like different things of. I happened to look at the first 10 yesterday to remind myself for our conversation today. Even in the first one where you've got an arpeggiation between the cellos and violas, and they're not in lockstep with each other to get sort of a blending sound of that.
Right, yes.
I mean, again, brilliant. That's great. And if no one thought of that ahead of time and they didn't go to a class to have it taught to them, how would they come up with that on their own? I don't know.
I mean, that would have been something, like for that specific example, would have been something I learned from John Williams, just studying his scores, noticing
so that's how you know.
How he... Yeah, that's how I know it.
Yeah.
I did not come up with that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Okay. Well, maybe Mozart did at some point. I don't, or who are, but maybe John did. We can't know who comes first.
I don't think he did.
But it's so. Let me ask a different question then, in terms of your own musical development and orchestration and composition. All self-taught?
Yes.
See, that's amazing.
I mean, we did have a composition module in uni, but that was like an hour a week for like 3 months. So I can't say that I learned a lot from that. No, yeah, I'm self-taught mostly from listening, transcribing. Trying to copy. Whatever kind of music I liked. Study scores, books, internet. Yeah, it was a bit of a messy process to get to the point where I might run out, where you feel confident with your skills, but at the same time, it's definitely something you can do. It's not because it's orchestral and it's orchestral music that you have to go to school or have to have a formal education.
Right. Okay, so as a self-taught orchestrator and composer, if you were going to give some advice to others who are coming up who are also looking at that's their path, they're not going to Juilliard, they're not going to the USC Film School, they're not going to Berkeley, they're doing it on their own. What are some tips that you have to give those people to help them get to whatever that end goal, I'm ready to score a film or whatever we might assume their goal would be, faster, more efficiently, more confidently?
I mean, everybody's different, so I can't say what worked for me, which was mostly transcribing, particularly in the early years, trying to copy other people's music, the music that I liked, and then trying to, every time I would write something of my own, try to apply a little something that I learned from the previous score. So that would have been my practice, my routine, really. And I still do that on occasion, not necessarily, a full score or anything. Might be like a couple of bars, might not even be orchestral sometimes,
Yep.
I still do that, and I find that works very well for me, but everybody's different. I know a lot of people like to read scores, for example, but I'm not like a great sight reader myself, so I tend to just leave that as a last resort,
Okay.
If I really can't figure that out, I would just try to get the score and just read it.
Well, let me ask you about that for a second. Do you think that there's a certain benefit, I'll put it that way, to figuring it out for yourself rather than reading it? I mean, I could set it up in the question like the reading it is having it handed to you. The other one is figuring it out for yourself. But what do you think the benefit is for figuring out for yourself?
I think it's a different process because, it depends on what you're transcribing. If you're transcribing a full orchestral score, it's pretty much impossible to hear each single element. So you have to guess, and that kind of forces you to rework the music yourself. So in a way, yes, for sure, you're copying the music, but at the same time, you're working on the music on your own as well. So I feel like there's that layer of, just having to kind of orchestrate the music yourself or try to figure out a part or write a part that fits whatever the music is. So I feel like that's the main difference really between that and reading, the full score. And then of course, I guess if somebody had a score to reference eventually, that would be the perfect way to kind of put everything together, because then you'd have the teacher just tell you, oh, okay, you thought it was that, but it's actually this is the way to do it.
Yes. I've worked with Gary Gray, who's done some re-records over the years for Disney, and as he's described it to me, sometimes you try to do it exactly like you just said. You have the music and I should say you have the soundtrack and you're listening and you're trying to figure out what it was. Sometimes you have a score. Sometimes they deviate from the score, so you still have to be able to figure out what it is that they did. So it's really a great skill to be able to go and just listen and try to figure out, what is the oboe doing, right? What is
exactly?
What is each thing doing, and why did the composer do that? Once you know what they're doing.
Exactly, and it can be quite tricky, particularly on the loud moments, tutti moments, dense chords or material that's dense harmonically, jazz, whatever. It can be quite tricky to figure that out.
I suppose I suppose I haven't done too much transcription in jazz other than solos, so fair enough. But yeah, I think having played a lot of jazz, the chord patterns are familiar to me, and that probably would help me if I was trying to do something on a new tune that maybe an old tune, I should say, maybe a Charlie Parker tune or something like that I was trying to figure out. But I think if we stick to the orchestral part, you're right on when things get very dense, it might be very difficult to figure out what all the colors are. And maybe at some point it doesn't become too important as to what they are.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be exact, It doesn't, as long as at least to me, as long as you can capture the vibe of the music you're trying to replicate, I feel like you're fine, probably.
Yeah. So you play still actively guitar and bass, right, on location, on gigs in UK? What are you up to?
I do not anymore.
Oh, okay.
I used to play mostly before COVID, but for obvious reasons, I had to stop.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into composing, actually. But no, I don't have as many gigs on bass and guitar anymore.
Okay.
I do play occasionally, but it's mostly with friends, just to have a bit of fun.
Okay. All right. And what are you working on compositionally now, for either for yourself or anyone else that you can talk about?
That I can talk about.
Symphony,
I've been working on a
symphony. What are you working on?
I wish I could write a symphony. No, I've been working on a new course that I can say, if you like. It's been in the works for a while. It's been a couple of years, so I should probably speed things up a bit.
Okay.
But at least I got the music. Now it's just a matter of kind of finalizing how we want to present it a little bit, which can be tricky if you want to make a course that's actually worth people money and time.
Yeah.
So it's been in the works for a while, but Nick, from Master the Score, is quite patient.
Okay.
And we became good friends over the years, and
you already have a lot of content on Master the Score people can find, and along with other composers that we've mentioned, educators that we've mentioned. I guess a thing I wanted to ask you then is, this is actually an important question, when you're self-taught and then you have to teach someone else, what are the principles that you think about in how to organize material, whatever it might be? You might take an example if you like, in order to ensure that you're doing the best job for someone else, to make it easier for them than it was for you.
I'm not the best teacher, I should say. So I tend to... The way I teach is usually through feedback, because everybody's different, everybody has different needs, and it can be... What works for somebody sometimes doesn't work for somebody else. So I used to do more structured teaching in my early days, especially during COVID. But I found that to be a lot of work, the planning and just having to just, be in touch with the student, and just like if you're passionate about it and you really want the student to get better, you have to make custom plans. So these days I tend to do feedback, which people tend to like, because it's more informal and it's more, everybody can get something out of it, generally speaking.
And is that structured as part of the coursework then, the feedback part, or is that outside of the coursework?
Yeah, we do have that too, because we have a big Discord community where we provide feedback to the students.
Okay, that's great.
So we have that as well. But in my one-to-ones, I generally speaking, I just grab a piece of music that the student is working on, and we try to figure it out together.
Yeah. And do you offer one-on-one sessions to anybody then? People can get in touch with you? And
yeah, generally speaking, yeah. I do it occasionally. Casual, fashion, really.
What do you enjoy most in the whole world of music? Teaching, writing, working on a project?
Writing, for sure. Writing, yes. I mean, that's always been my passion, more so than anything else. I like playing the guitar, of course, but it doesn't... I guess I kind of like hearing the piece of music, just full, complete. Everything sounds good, That is the part I like the most. Yeah. Not necessarily composing itself, just having hearing the music back once you're
Yeah,
done.
the fulfillment. So
Suffering.
you remind me of a time. I think you had the Budapest Scoring Orchestra record for
Yep.
your off of the example. I think you had from the 100 examples, right? If I remember, something like that, right? I
Yep.
think it based on that theme. So was that the first time that you had a live orchestra perform your work?
Yes and no. I had a couple of experiences with smaller orchestras and smaller bands as well, but like with a full orchestra like that, it was a first. It was quite unlike anything else, really, because obviously it's one thing writing with the samples and just having, hearing the music back, just playing back eventually with real musicians, everybody, is great. It's just a very unique experience. I don't think anybody can get used to that. I guess even experienced composers, they probably have this feeling. I think just the first time you hear the music back, how you meant it, is magical. I find.
Yeah. So a minute ago you said you wish you could write a symphony, but you can. So what is holding you back?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not big into classical music, so not having a formal training, of course, does play a role into this, because obviously, there are forms and rules and things like that, which I do not know. Also because I'm not like big fan of classical music. If I was gonna write a symphony, I would probably do something that's not a symphony. You know what I mean? Like I would probably write a long piece of music that's not necessarily a symphony.
Fair enough. Okay. Or you could do something more modern. I think on our Symphonina Stories New Horizons album, for example, David Doss has a tribute to Bernstein and Gershwin, and as a Symphonina, it works great. And I don't know how it would work as a symphony. Maybe a classical person would say, wait, that's not what we do here. But it's time to move on from those things anyway, so that's fine.
Yeah. Plus, I tend to get tired of my own music pretty quickly, so working on the same thing. Working on the same thing for a long time, I'm not sure how I could do that. Because obviously, like when you're working on a film score, it's different. Like it's the same music, but you have many different cues, which tend to sound different from each other.
Right.
But a symphony, from my understanding at least, there's a lot of similarity within its content, its musical content. So
maybe I think that's an option. I think also as long as you're telling a story with the music, then let's think for a second here. When Beethoven's Sixth Symphony, for example, I know pretty well, and I think maybe someone could say that there's similarities between the movements in a way, but more it's the pastoral story. To me, I don't really think of it as similar musical motifs or anything, but there is that saying, a pretty girl is like a melody, meaning that you can make anything like anything else, right? So you can find the patterns where you want them to be, but I think as long as you tell a story in 3 or 4 or 5, in that case, movements, you're fine. As long as people like it, you're fine. As long as you like it, really. As long as you like it, you're fine.
If I was going to write a symphony, I would probably write it for myself, I think. I don't think I would write it for an audience or anything like that.
Well,
just like as a long-term project.
If my encouragement could mean anything, I encourage you to do it. I'd love to hear it anyway. I love to hear anything that you've done. And then I'll say one other thing, Matt. Like I said, I got into writing orchestra music probably about 9-10 years ago, and every one of us, I think, at some point has like a time where it's not so much even a writer's block, but it's just like you want a spark of an idea to do something, and you try something and it's not it, and you try something else and it's not it. I don't. There are those rare people who can just sit down and they always have the spark. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how they do it, but there are those people. I'm not one of those people. I have to mess around with it and try to figure it out. And there are plenty of times when I've gone, okay, let's go listen to something that Matt's done and see if I get a spark. And I do. And I can't be the only one. So thank you so much for everything that you've contributed to the world already in terms of orchestral education and your own musical skills. And then to find out that you're all self-taught is like, okay, that's like the inspiration for just about anybody because orchestral composition can be kind of daunting for people, and I've had the good fortune of being in music my entire life, so it wasn't particularly daunting to me, and spending a lot of time at the orchestra as a child, so it wasn't daunting for that reason either. But for many other people, it is, and you have demonstrated that it doesn't have to be.
Well, thank you. I mean, music does not come easy to me either. So there's a lot of struggling and just
We'll take some
trying
solace
to.
in that.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of struggling and trying to figure it out, and just going for walks and singing nonsense into my phone. You know,
Yes.
there's a lot of that. A lot. There's more of that than actual, moments of greatness. If I'm honest.
Yeah, Matt, you remind me. I was in line one time at a drugstore here about 2 years ago, and I was humming something, and this woman in front of me turns around and looks at me and goes, "Are you a hummer?" And I'm like, "I'm a composer, actually." So you're like, "Oh, okay, fair enough." But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. You always have something and some way of like, okay, where's the phone? Where's that voice recorder? Let me get that down. And then 2 days later, does it even make sense anymore to you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't.
You never use any of that anyway, so why do you?
I know, but you have to get it out. So, anyway, Matt, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
I think my website or my Instagram, it should be pretty easy to find.
MattiaChiappa.com, right? If I remember right.
Exactly, MattiaChiappa.com.
Okay.
There's a contact form. You can send me an email. I usually try to reply pretty quickly.
Matt, we wish you the best. We're going to listen to some more of your great compositions on the way out here. If there is anything that we can do at the Symphonina Foundation to be of help to you, you just let us know.
Of course. That's very kind. Thank you.